This has to be my favorite topic to talk about because it bridges everything we've been doing with all of the collective connections, all of the intuitive development, but it also bridges everybody into the world of quantum healing, which for many of you is the reason you're showing up live to the circle tonight, because something is likely going on with your body that you're not in love with. And one of the things that people come to me the most for is that everybody else has exhausted all options and they can't figure out what to do with your system. And so instead, they say, you're going to be on this medication. This is how your health is going to be. You're going to have to learn to live with this mental health diagnosis. You're just going to have to therapy this out. You're never going to lose that weight, right? And the list goes on and on and on. Or in extreme cases, you're going to die. So people come to me oftentimes when they're at the end of the line, but I wish they would step in when they first got diagnosed because it's so much faster to unwind it at that point. So my goal tonight, you guys, is not necessarily to tell you the how, because what I need you all to understand is that what got you to the situation you're in with your body is unique to you. There will be some overlaps between you and the person beside you because there are patterns and themes in this like nobody's business. But I can't at this stage of the game go and give everybody one blanket thing to go do that's going to resolve all of your issues. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, why this is relevant to say right at the beginning is because I know what is going to happen in the chat box 2 seconds from now. So we're all going to make an agreement. Everybody listen up real quick. Get your distractions out of your place. Literally, you can cure anything in your body. Everything, all allergies, all disease, all autoimmune. I've done it with thousands of clients now. There is nothing that is off the table. Literally nothing. MS, ALS, cancers, Crohn's colitis, right? PCOS, fibromyalgia. What else have we done? Diabetes, lupus, right? Katie's a walking testament to that. So is Tiffany, right? You guys have that. Literally everything. Yeah, Lyme disease and the lesions. HIV, we have reversed in 2 clients now at this point. Shingles, viral particulates, anything that is in your system, we can fix it, you guys. See, everybody's going to do it. How about brain injuries? How about this? All of it. The only thing I cannot help you do is regrow limbs. I can't, like if you've had your whole uterus resected, we probably can't regrow one, but we can look for energetic bypasses to put your body back into a hormonal bliss state rather than having to be reliant on medications. We can do it all. And so what I want you guys to first wrap your heads around is all the diagnoses that you have bought into and that have been told to you and the ways you thought your body was going to be forever are bullshit. All of it. Like just sit with that for a hot minute. Every mental health diagnosis that a doctor has ever given a person and the pill they've used to prescribe it is a crutch and a lie. Every disease you have manifested is a buildup of energy of something going underneath the surface that you didn't deal with that needs to be corrected so that we can get you back on track and balanced in your human. Don't believe me? Try me. I have thousands of testimonials now. The only thing that will get in your way of fixing your body and everything that you can do is you. So the first thing I'm going to ask all of you to do, because I can feel it right now in the room, everybody's like, well, nothing has really actually worked for me. So how's this going to be different? I can feel it. That's the first thing you need to destroy and uncreate, because truly you haven't done the thing that actually works. Doctors don't know what they don't know. And so that's the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the differences between something called allopathic medicine and upward causation and complementary medicine and downward causation. Does anybody know what those things are? Amanda's like, me, because I'm a decoder. She's like, I got this. All my decoders are like, I know. Okay. So let's start with what's really familiar to you guys. So we're going to talk about allopathic medicine first. So allopathy or allopathic medicine is what we are used to if we go to a hospital, if we go to a traditional MD who says, okay, tell me about your symptom, and you tell them your knee hurts. And so what's the first thing they're going to look at? Your knee. When they are prescribing medications, they are looking at how can I diminish a symptom, not necessarily the cure, but how can I alleviate what this person is experiencing. They use a model of understanding called upward causation. In upward causation, scientists are trained to believe, as well as doctors and all the practitioners as such, that we have to look at the physical before we go to the mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. The belief that they are trained within is that consciousness can't arrive to a system until the physical has been built up. So they see things like elements and ions, atoms, molecules binding together, and then our cells in our organisms growing out to create this human form, which then we get a brain. And then once that comes, then we start to have thought and life, right? So they see everything building from the molecular structures up. Now change that and we look at complementary medicine. So you guys could look at things like Ayurveda, you could look at TCM, you could look at acupuncture, right? Within that, within the Chinese medicine, you could look at homeopathy, you could look at herbology. They use something called downward causation. And in downward causation, they believe that consciousness is what shapes and informs all of the molecules, the atoms, the structures, the organs, all of our tissues. And that in order to facilitate a change, we have to start from the spiritual consciousness levels and work our way down to get permanent, lasting results. But some of you, I'm going to bet in the circle, and let me know if this is you. Some of you guys have probably dabbled in that stuff. You've probably tried homeopathy and acupuncture and maybe herbology. Maybe you have been to an Ayurvedic practitioner or TCM, and did it fix everything? For some of you, maybe, right? But for many of us, not so much. Why? Because we need both. And this is where the metaphysical community and the complementary therapists and the modern, Western medicine model are sitting in these divergent paths. And what we need to do is bring them together. We need to understand, because remember back to day one, we talked about the 12 dimensions, right? So we know that dimensions 2, I can't count 2, and 3 are physical, yes? We know that all the other dimensions are not. And so we have to include the physicality with the emotional mental body. We have to include it with the spiritual. And if we leave any one of those behind, we're not going to fix the whole problem. So, one of the things I teach all of my decoders in these classes is we start bridging allopathy and complementary, and we bring it all together because we've got to be able to see the bigger picture. Because if we don't have the whole story, we can't course correct the whole human. Okay, everybody following so far? Okay, so let's go to the next part. When we are expressing an issue within the body, by the time it gets to be something that is projecting outward, we have all levels and layers of the energy bodies affected that we're going to need to address. So I want to draw you guys a little picture, and all my decoders are going to be familiar with this fantastic piece of art I'm about to share with you all. Violet, I don't have the comments up, so if you see things, please let me know, and you can interject.
Okay.
Okay. So let's make the assumption that this black oval is you. Okay, this is your physical body. If this is your physical layer, I need to shrink my screen just a little bit so I still have my drawing bars. Just a second. If this is your physical layer, the next layer out from this, we have your mental thinking body. Your mental body is everywhere that you stream thoughts together. Your logic comes into play. You are working on processing, right? It's a linear field of consciousness. Then out from here, we have your emotional body. And your emotion body is pretty self-explanatory, but it's all of the ways that you express different vibrational frequencies based on stimulus and understanding of the environment around you. Out from your emotional body, we have this looks like a vulva, your spiritual body. And in your spiritual body this is where it houses all of your beliefs and your ideologies and the way that you see and perceive the world around you. And then out from here, we have that soul song. You guys might remember this from day one. I talked about how once the second dimension is formed, it can now, we'll use yellow, it can now receive a soul song. So maybe you've got like some really cool light coding come in. Maybe you've got like these streams of consciousness beaming in from your source code, whatever it looks like. And then you're going to have what we're going to call your source code. Okay, so this is where you begin from. So in this very beautiful drawing I've done, somebody can buy this, you can put it on your wall. It's $1.99. In this beautiful drawing I've done, we need to look at how all of these layers start to affect each other because all of them talk. So if you are somebody that is experiencing pain, disease, trauma, a mental diagnosis, whatever it is, the first thing I know to be true, especially, or even scar tissue not repairing, your body going into depreciation modes, premature aging, things like this, the first thing that I know to be true about what's going on in your system, I'm going to use shit brown for this, is that you have distorted and cut off a lot of your song from the morphogenetic field. You're not receiving all of the data from your source point. And every time we separate farther from that, we get heavier in our fourth dimensional frequencies, and we go further and further and further into that I am special programming where we go, I'm sick, I am the victim, this is my reality, the less and less of those songs and tones that can get through to your physicality. But all these layers talk. They all talk. They have to. They intrinsically work with one another. So your mental body, so this is this, do they still have the other arrows here? Yeah. So your mental body can affect your physical body, how you think, what you believe, what your logic dictates can change the programming within how your physical operates. Your emotions affect your physical body, right? We know that if we are having an extreme stress signal or we get really sad or angry or depressed or whatever it is, it can cause lethargy or we can feel like we don't want to eat, right? We know that emotions have a direct effect on the system. Our spiritual beliefs and what we believe to be true beyond this life and those drivers of what is life beyond this can affect the physical body. So if we believe that there is nothing beyond this physicality, we can close ourselves off to the morphogenetic field. But it also works the other way out. So your emotional body can affect how you think and how you process. Your mental body can drive what the spiritual is allowed to say to you, and back and forth, round and round it goes. So this is the first thing I just want to drop into your guys' awareness. So your body has these 5 energetic layers. right? It has these 5 energetic layers that is constantly reading, emitting, and communicating information back and forth between. And it's constantly making adjustment decisions based on your choices and how you move throughout those layers. If any one of them is out of sync, we're going to end up with a malfunction at a junction somewhere. If we are carrying something like ancestral genetic coding, like how many of you guys have been diagnosed with something that somebody has told you it's genetic? Yeah. You know what they're really saying to you? You're filtering something for your ancestors that they haven't been able to figure out. It's your job now. You can turn it off and you can stop that genomic sequencing from firing any longer in your body, as well as any body that comes through you. Okay. So when we have disease expressing, it could be in a point of origin from our Akashic records, from a trauma, right? It could be operating from memory. It could be that when you were in utero with your mama bear, she may have been in a really not great spot and may have been distorting your ability to receive all of the morphogenetic information from your source coding, because our moms play a big, big, big role in how much we can download and emit when we're forming. It's
That
why
was
we
one of
talk.
the questions, Caitlin,
Yeah.
was about when like babies are born with issues, or if they end up being diagnosed or contracting it within like the first couple years of being born. Is that always something that they're picking up from mom, or like where does that come from?
Not always. And we want to be very careful not to always like blame self. Because I know as a mom, if my kid had been diagnosed with something and something, they were born and they had some kind of deformity or a disease, I know that I would have blamed myself and been like, what did I do wrong? Was it something I ate? Did I eat too many pickles? Like, what was the problem here? But it's less likely to be the actions and more likely to be the energy. And it could also be that child, this isn't the first time they are expressing life this way. Okay, so it can be ancestral. It can absolutely be a mother to grandmother to great grandmother or even father line wound. But this might not be the first time that this child has expressed this way. They may be very, very locked into that Bardo cycle. We talked about that on day 2, right? So this may be somebody who is torturing self because they think they have to for past transgressions or karmic retribution in the way that they understand it. And so the point of origin for healing something like that is much different than if it's a mother wound. This is why I say we cannot go in and say that all kids who have autism, it's because of this. We have to track, where did it start? What is the point of origin? Okay. Disease is really interesting because when it's expressing, your body gave you clues that it was coming on before it started. All of you guys that have diagnoses can think back, like go back in your memory to before that label was your reality. There were signs, there were symptoms, there were feelings, there was a trigger that made you go, something's wrong. I don't feel right. I don't know if this is what my body's supposed to be doing. There is something that you were curious about. Now, like most people, before they come to see me, they go to a medical doctor, and I have to now give you the disclaimer that I legally have to do because I am not an MD. This is for entertainment purposes only. I really have no idea what I'm talking about, and you should consult your practitioner. Okay, most people go to their allopathic practitioner, they go through a rigmarole of testing, they get diagnosed with something. If there is a pill to alleviate symptoms or slow the roll, they get put on that, and they are told, okay, this is how we're going to manage for life. Right? How many of you guys, that's your story? It's your job now to decide, is that your life you want to live? Or are you done with the diagnosis? Because once you're done, the next step is we have to start tracking into why was it created in your body in the first place, right? Now, there's layers to this because sometimes it's not just from this life. Some people are expressing, I have one of my clients that she had breast cancer, and it was all coming through a mother wound and that nurturing. It was pent up anger and resentment. And her body started creating an exit strategy because she was so mad and hadn't processed that stuff. Some of my fibro clients, and this seems to be a theme with all of them, have this deep rooted disgust in humanity. And when we go back in their Akashic records, both for this lifetime and before, we see multiple times where they have watched absolutely heinous acts against humanity take place, or where they themselves or family members have been abused. And so then they paint and generalize the whole culture. And so we have to go back and we have to do those healing pieces and do the work. Disease can also express because you can choose to be filtering it for somebody else so they don't go down. One of my recent cancer clients had had a tumor, and it wasn't even his. He was keeping his mother alive because she's so good at creating her exit strategies and trying to get her to get onto her own 2 feet. We can take disease and create chaos in our body for somebody else. Isn't that nuts? Yeah, your animals take on cancers and disease too. Kidney issues, non-processing issues. Animals tend to mirror for us a lot. So people who are having to take their cats to the vet all the time for kidney issues, because cats get bladder infections all the time. I'm like, dude, we need to talk about what you're not processing because you're killing your cat, right? Like, we need to go look at this. And they do it because they're our friends. They do it because they know they have a short life. They do it because they are hoping that we're going to get the information. Does that mean I indirectly killed my cat? Well, maybe. Again, we have to track it, right? Because they also have their own soul and their own life. But possibly, and if you did, whatever, now you get to clean it up because souls are eternal. It'll just come back if it wants to. Okay, so now you guys know how I feel about life and death. I'm like, love you, long time, bye-bye, see you in next body. I know, it's a thing. So the next thing is we can create disease because we have something called exit strategies running. An exit strategy are all the ways that we have programmed into our timelines through our Akashic records, through what we said was going to be our journey for this life, that we said, if it gets too hard, I'm out. If I don't figure out this piece one more time, kill me, I'm gone, I'm going to start again. Maybe I'll just get hit by a train when I'm 62 if I don't fall in love. We create these silly things called exit strategies, and they could be drastic like that, but they could also be cancers. That was my mother's. So my mom in 2008, she one day just couldn't pee. And we were like, what the hell? And she went to the Medi Center and they're like, well, this isn't good. Let's go to the ER instead. She was diagnosed and died of a renal cell carcinoma in 8 days. The first day that they did all the ultrasounds and scans, it was this big, you guys, in her kidney. That's not a killer tumor. That's a whatever. They could have resected it, right? Then she made the decision. She's like, you know what? Yeah, this is my exit strategy. I'm out. I don't want to be near my narcissistic ex anymore. She had to look after my sister, who is the epitome of a hot mess express. She was burdened, couldn't get away from my dad, and didn't want to finish the divorce because she was going to have to pay this deadbeat alimony. She could not see a way out of her life, and she was miserable. So you know what she did? She chose the cancer. And she was like, damn, how fast can I manipulate this? And how fast can I go? 8 days. So we can create exit strategies like that. We can create long-term loss of faculties, like with MS and ALS, where people lose control of all systems. We have exit strategies like Alzheimer's dementia, where the soul is like, yeah, you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore. Anybody want a free ride? Like, I would like to get out. Anybody, put your foot in the door. And they inadvertently open space for another soul to drop in, right? So we have things like this. Suicides are absolutely exit strategies. Absolutely. Many of those souls are on that karmic wheel and they go, God, this is repeating again. Damn it. Okay, if I take myself out, hopefully I'll remember a little bit more. I'll fix it next time, right? Those suicides, we see them sometimes as selfish. They're an exit strategy for that person, right?
One of the questions in the group is, what would be the reason that somebody would choose an exit strategy that is like long term and drawn out and painful
Some
like
people
that?
feel the need to torture themselves because they think they've hurt others. That's one I have seen. Others think it's going to be a little bit quicker than it is. Sometimes they just want other people to take care of them for a change. So they start losing their capacities, so somebody else has to wipe their butt. It's like, it's almost like a karmic rebalancing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I have literally seen it all in people's records at this point, right?
I think
Yeah.
you've mentioned this before too, Caitlin, is sometimes people they want out, but their family is holding on so tightly to them that it draws out the process too. So all of their cords and contracts with the family that are still alive that depend on them or aren't ready to get rid of them or let them go. So then they're like in this tug of war with themselves. They want to leave, but they also feel obligated to stay.
That's also why we end up with so many disincarnated souls who don't even make it to the Bardos and they literally stay here bound to their human family members that are still on this earth plane because they can't let go. Yeah. All right. So we have other causes of disease that I want to talk about a little bit. So we also have the walk in effect and phenomena. With certain types of walk-in setups, it can cause a malfunction at a junction within the human body complex because we were only built to have one soul in this system. And anytime we have more than one, it creates a bit of an issue. So people who have, especially Akashic level walk-ins, who they've done this a few times with, and they kind of have those cords and contracts to one another to carry things out, or they actually bound themselves with some kind of witchcraft and neo-paganism. We see a lot of these coming in from about like the 1300s to the 1800s. You'll see a lot of Akashic records about this when you go through the training. I see a lot of them from when they used to do like blood magic and bloodletting or hand fasting ceremonies. You will see these souls end up doing this braid or this twist. And instead of coming beside each other again in the next life to incarnate, they come together and they end up in these bodies. We also see walk-in scenarios where one says, I'm going to protect you for the rest of my life, together forever, right? Or they're afraid for the other one or feel like they have to keep the other one hidden, things like this. So we end up with walk-ins. We end up with more than one soul in the body quite frequently. And when that happens, we start to see crazy things like autoimmune disease pop up, eczema, psoriasis, bronchitis, bipolarism, multi-personality, borderline, all of those things. As soon as somebody tells me they have them, you better believe the first thing I'm checking for is, are they the only soul in this body? And I will tell you 99.9% of the time, they are not. Right? And this is where we see the most spontaneous happen, like things happen, is because when we cross over that other soul, the body gets to rebalance and regulate and goes back to normal. One of my very first clients I took a walk in out of had like chronic bronchitis for years. Like she was on asthma inhalers, she had seasonal allergies, like she was just sucking that thing back like it was candy. And she had a walk in with her that was an uncle from another timeline. And we took him out. And literally, her lungs reset within an hour, and she hasn't had to pick up allergy meds or an inhaler since. I've had another one. I don't know if she's on here tonight, but she had a walk in and she had constant eczema psoriasis going on her arms. We took hers out and then it was gone. I've had other people with Crohn's colitis, the walk in removes, and all of a sudden they're fine. Their guts are no longer rolling, they're no longer in trouble. Okay. So walk ins can cause a shit ton of problems. Walk-ins sometimes also get blamed for things like chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, anxiety, right? So those things are there. But pretty much anytime somebody has autoimmune, that's the first thing I look for, because body is trying to make sense of two different code sets from two different souls. And so it starts attacking one and then not the other, and then it bounces back and forth. But science can't figure this out because they're not looking beyond what they know. Okay, so we have the walk-in effect. We can also be really interesting human beings and buy into the story that we need to learn what it's like to live with disease. And so sometimes in the karmic wheel and like over in the Bardos, we write into our Akashic wheel and we're like, yeah, I think I want to figure out what it's like to have cancer. That sounds fun. Humans get cancer. Let's do that. All right. And you program it into your field, you put it into your morphogenetics, and then here you come into this lifetime and bam, there you go. All of a sudden you get cancer at this age. We can have family line trigger patterns where, women, for example, I've seen this in one family line. This was interesting. They came through, and what happened is the girl who came to see me, I think she was 48, got breast cancer. And she said, what's really odd? My mom got breast cancer when she was 48 too. And I think my grandma also had it. I can't remember how old, but I think she was getting close to her 50s. Well, she went back and guess how old her grandmother was when she got diagnosed with breast cancer. She was like 48, right? Like they were all the same. So that is an example of a karmic wheel, right? That can be cycling around that triggers disease. But if that's the case, like think about this. If that's the case, that's not a gene driving that. That's something written into the energetic field for that person. There's a trigger, right? There's got to be something that gets struck. We call it a resonance field, right? There's something sitting in that human being that gets hit, it gets bumped, and all of a sudden we have this cataclysm of whatever the disease is going to be, whether it's that breast cancer in that instance, or somebody has a psychotic break or whatever it is. And now everybody's repeating this pattern. Yeah, there you go, Trisha. She's saying both my mom and grandma died of lung cancer in their early 50s. Okay. We can have another one where we see lots of humans suffering with a particular condition. And so with that, we might say, okay, I'm going to come in. I'm going to have this condition for a period of time. I'm going to figure out the codex, and then I'm going to be able to get other people out of it. So that's another scenario that can happen. Lots of people who especially are like the walk-ins, the starseed walk-ins that come in, because not all of us are, but some are. Those ones who come in sometimes will create short-term disability, dis-ease, to be able to unwind it, to then pass on to others. So for example, in my life, I chose to pick up the depression and the anxiety, the suicidal ideation, IBS, those were my main ones, and allergies. Those are the ones that I completely embodied for a long time. And then I figured out how to completely get them out of my field. So those are kind of like most common ways that we create disease. IBS is no fun. I stayed home a lot. All right. So if you guys try this on, it's going to bug some of you because a lot of you have had these diagnoses for a long time, or been on medications, or thought this is just as good as it's going to get. How many of you guys have said that? This is as good as it's going to get. I guess the meds have leveled off. I guess this is just, the most I'm going to be able to achieve with my life, whatever it is. I won't be able to move better. I won't be able to see better, whatever. So many of us, right? The first thing you have to destroy and uncreate is all of that energy. This is the perfect place to go and take those clearing statements and start running them on all your beliefs about what you could or couldn't do with what's going on in your system. You have to start breaking down all the thoughts and the stupid things you've told yourself and bought from other people. So the next one for homework for all of you guys experiencing this is you need to think about all the things that others have said to you that you have bought into and believed. You have to destroy those and get them out of your neural pathways, out of your brain. And then you install a new question. It's just, what else is possible? What else is possible? All right. So this is the part that everybody doesn't like me for, because they're like, but how? You kind of have two choices. You figure out how to track by yourself, and you start with going through your ancestral patterning. You go through your Akashic records. Sometimes you need to go as far as going into your galactic or your telluric levels, and you start clearing it all down. You look for the triggers. You look for the emotional cataclysm events that happened. You look for the cords. You look for the contracts. You look for the agreements. You check for your emotion state on it. Right? You can absolutely hack it alone. Most of us are not going to feel confident doing that. I didn't at first. And so this is where you have to kind of make the decision of, how do I want to approach this? What you can't do is approach this as the victim. I can't help you if you are the victim to your circumstances. Think about that for a second. Why? Right? Why can't I come in and help somebody if they are still the victim to what's going on? It's because they're still in the consciousness of creating the disease that is going on in their body. And if they're still in that consciousness field and they're not willing to come above it, and they don't want to meet me on that level playing field to work together, I can't do diddly squat for them. What I need is for that person to start getting glimpses of that fifth dimensional frequency. And if we remember back to day one, let's tie all the learnings now together. If we loop back to day one, what was that fifth dimension about? It was about coming up and seeing the intrinsic relationships between all things, right? And so what we need to be able to do together is we need to be able to come into that fifth dimensional frequency and start looking at, what actually is this? Where did it start? Who else does it tie to? What parts of the body are connected? What energy fields are disturbed? And then where's the linchpin? What do I pull? Right? Now, the next thing I notice in my clients is a lot of them don't actually want to take accountability at first, which is super interesting. And I see this not only in like the spiritual learnings and growing our gifts and our capacities, but I also see this when it comes into our healing work, right? A lot of times in our healing work, we don't want to take accountability for how much we are or are not pouring into what we do. The only reason I got good at what I'm doing is this is my life. I do this all day, every day. I'm training students, I'm working with clients, I'm developing course materials. Like, I am immersed in this work. I research, I understand the body, I put it all together. How much time are you spending studying the human? That's a big component of it. But it's not going to be everybody's interest. And if it's not, you need to find somebody who can help you, right?